Welcome back, Level Uppers. It's Larry, and this is Level Up Larry's Going Green bonus episode, Classic Low-Level Dungeons. If there was ever one thing where you could say, they don't make them like this anymore, it would most certainly have to be about the dungeons of Classic EverQuest. By far, one of the most immersive parts of Classic EverQuest were the dungeons. The attention to environmental detail, the constant feeling of imminent danger, and the true satisfaction of risk versus reward in its purest MMO sense are all consistent characteristics of classic EQ dungeons. And what's truly impressive, aside from their individual uniqueness, was the fact that there were a total of 16 dungeons at launch back in 1999. And while it's enough content for its own dedicated episode, the dynamics of group composition also played a huge role into the overall dungeon experience, and in some cases was critical to ensuring your overall success within one. In this bonus episode, I will cover two of the most recognizable low-level dungeons in EverQuest, Blackburrow and Crushbone. Let's start with Blackburrow, but first, some lore. For reasons unknown, about 500 years prior to the classic timeline, dwarves excavated what is now known as Blackburrow. The Sabertooth clan gnolls were originally from the Jagged Pine Forest, but due to human settler conflict, they had to retreat to this dwarven excavated area and eventually established their base of operations here. For perspective, most of the gnoll clans were docile and avoided any level of aggression towards anyone else. This did not apply to the Sabertooth clan, who were persistently violent to humans as they established their newfound settlement of Kanos, which was considered to be part of the clan's homelands. A generation after the settlement of Kanos was established, Gynok Moltar was appointed to captain of the Tower Guard. Gynok had a deep hatred towards gnolls due to them killing his parents many years earlier, so much in fact that he would send secret patrols to go slay gnolls in Kanos Hills. During a peace treaty attempt by the Sabertooths, High Shaman Apala had his hand cut off by Gynok, which caused an eternal war between the Sabertooths and humans. The design of Blackburrow is a multi-level dungeon that serves as the only natural way to get from Hollis, or Everfrost, to Kanos Hills. And it's located along the eastern wall of Kanos Hills, just north of West Karana. If unprepared or unfamiliar with some of the traps or pits that are within the early areas of the dungeon, an adventurer could find themselves in a nasty situation involving several dozen gnolls. In the aftermath of this nasty situation, escalating is typically converted into massive trains, or packs of aggressive angry gnolls chasing fleeing adventurers up to the entrance of the dungeon. Some of the most memorable low-level trains have been produced out of this dungeon. There are many areas where adventurers can set up camp, but some of the more popular spots are the Bridge, Snake Pit, Snake Ledge, Elite Room, Elite Ledge, and Commander Room. Generally speaking, there isn't a terrible amount of loot variety in Blackburrow, but that doesn't mean there isn't incentive to adventure through it. Low-level melee classes will find nice use of the spike collars and rusty spike shoulder pads for their plus strength attributes. A giant snake fang will also be a top-quality piercer for its level for those seeking one. Aside from the monk headband quest requiring the slaying of high-ranked gnolls, the Gnoll Fang quest will definitely bring increased traffic to the dungeon, as this will provide some accelerated experience point gain when you turn them into Captain Tillin back at the Warrior Guild in South Kanos. Let's jump over to Crushbone now. Long ago, the Crushbone clan of orcs were a force to be reckoned with, and for the longest time no race stood a chance to challenge their rule over Fadewar. The Teardow's conquest had also reached beyond the forests of Nektalos, and they had made an advance and held Felwith, the High Elf city, for some time. Eventually, the orcs who were approached by the Teardow created an unlikely alliance that led to the placement of a Dark Elf ambassador named Dvin, who ended up being quite deceiving with his true motives. Dvin lived in the presence of the Crushbone orcs for many generations, and stood behind many an orc emperor, making him a very familiar face for years and years. As the lines of his role and his purpose started to blur over time, Dvin effectively became just as influential as any acting orc emperor or orc leadership within the ranks of the keep. Eventually, war broke out and the Dark Elves lost their hold over Felwith, and this is the timeline that classic EverQuest picks up with in regards to this dungeon. And for those of you interested on how things play out, a slight spoiler alert. In an effort to tilt the odds back into their favor, Dvin offered the solution of necromancy, which Emperor Crush was on board with. But despite tapping into this dark art, the orc numbers were still dwindling at a rapid pace. Taking advantage of the unrest, Dvin and the Prophet, who was also hungry for power, devised a plan for the Prophet to claim to have a vision from Ralthazek himself that would essentially put the plan in motion to convince Emperor Crush to exile and serve as a blood sacrifice to give an orcs a fighting chance to win the war. After agreeing to the plan, Emperor Crush disappeared, and shortly after, Dvin claimed that he had a document showing that he was assigned by the Emperor to be his regent. Any orc who questioned Dvin's leadership were quickly silenced and dealt with. Eventually, Dvin installs more Teardal into high authority positions and ultimately established himself as the leader of the Crushbone orcs. Crushbone is just north of the Wood Elf city of Kelethin. The dungeon itself is mostly open and a bit easier to navigate through. However, the dungeon's accessibility does pose its own set of problems. Specifically, it's much more likely for something from a higher level camp not too far away to be trained to the entrance, causing one or two high level orcs to ruin the day of any unexpected adventurer. Tents, Castle Crush, Slave Cabin, Slaver Caves, Slaver Pit, and Trainer Hill are all popular camps within the dungeon. For gear, unlike Blackburrow, there are quite a few more useful items here that will help generate some income throughout the leveling process. Some of the more unique gear that will be highly sought out is the Dwarven Ringmail Tunic off of Emperor Crush, the Shiny Brass Shield from the Orc Trainer, the Bracers of Battle from the Orc Warlord, and the Prayer Cloth of Tunair, which is a result of trading in the Bracers of Battle to the Elven Priest. Expanding out a bit, if you turn in the Dwarven Ringmail Tunic, the Shiny Brass Shield, and the Prayer Cloth of Tunair to the Dwarven Smith, you will receive a Screaming Mace, which is one of the most recognizable low-level classic items in existence. Also very much worth mentioning is the Dragoon Dirk, which is one of the best low-level piercers you can get at its level range. And this drops off our good friend, Ambassador Dvin. Similar to the Nullfang quest in Blackburrow, while slaying orcs, collecting Crushbone belts will prove to be worth it if you're willing to run them over to Kaladin to turn them in, to the dwarf Canlo Nuzbak. In closing, anyone who played classic EverQuest will immediately recognize and have a story about their trials and tribulations in either one of these dungeons. Many of us have these dungeons so ingrained in our nostalgic mind that simply running through them will bring a rush of memories that we had within them upwards of 20 years ago. And while the mystery of stumbling upon a new dungeon may not be a possibility in present day, re-experiencing them in true gearless classic EverQuest fashion will most certainly provide hours of fun, challenge, and entertainment. And most importantly, serving as a reminder of what made the dungeons of classic EverQuest so amazing. If time permits, I would love to walk everybody through the remaining 14 classic dungeons of EverQuest. But as everybody knows, Green Launch is right around the corner, and I am pretty busy trying to prepare for a big launch weekend. Hopefully I'll be able to catch some of you over there on Twitch, where I will be exclusively playing Green Server for quite a while. And any coordination efforts that you would like to have, feel free to stop on by the Level Up community over on Discord. Again, thank you for all of your support. This bonus episode would not have been a thing without it, and I look forward to seeing all of you soon. Level up, hype!